What a privilege to be here today. We've spent some time listening to some incredible presentations about how to make impact in this world. And I'm here to talk to you about how measuring that impact can actually help us to create the momentum for more impact in a number of different ways. And I'm going to do that by sharing with you my experiences in helping to establish a place called Pine River Institute. Pine River is an innovative program that's providing residential treatment for adolescents and families who are struggling with some significant substance abuse problems and mental health issues here in Canada. Back in 2001, I was fresh out of undergrad and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to make a difference in this world. I took a job in wilderness therapy in the deserts of southern Utah. And day after day, I hiked in those red rock canyons amidst the juniper and sage. I ate smoky mac and cheese cooked out of billy cans and drank out of cow ponds. I seriously drank out of cow ponds. And I watched as one young person after the next turn their lives around from trauma, gang involvement, family breakdown, addictions. And I can remember lying under my tarp one night thinking, why doesn't anything like this exist in Canada? Honestly, I was brutally aware that as I was keeping watch over the 8 students who were soundly sleeping beside me, people close to me back home were struggling with substance abuse and mental health, and they were desperate for help. Within a year, I found myself back in Toronto, sitting across from this little red bamboo table, sipping tea with a woman named Karen Minden. And Karen was a visionary. She wanted to do something to change Canada. She wanted to transform the landscape of services available to young people and families who were struggling with significant substance abuse. And so naturally, I volunteered to do anything I could do to help. In 2002, I found myself back in Utah on the side of the road, taking a break from interviewing dozens of programs and dozens of staff because we were trying to figure out what worked. And we were shocked by how few programs actually measured their outcomes. Continued to do our research, survey the literature, and talking to hundreds of people, and eventually the mission for Pine River started to take shape. We decided that we would aim to provide the highest quality of care for families and youth who were struggling with significant substance abuse problems so that they could regain their lives, their families, and their futures. Because so few services existed in Canada, we would have to offer everything all in one spot. So we set up wilderness therapy, residential treatment, transition, aftercare, and a full family program all in one organization. But the vision for Pine River was and still is very much wider. We wanted to transform the field of adolescent development and substance abuse treatment in Canada and beyond. With no government funding, we were relying 100% on the community for support, and the community came through. In June of 2006, Pine River Institute opened its doors, and the possibility of making a difference became real. I was there. That's me right there. Yeah. We had just hired our first group of staff. You can see in their faces this sense of excitement and optimism and promise that comes with being able to make a difference. And we were determined from the get-go to start to create a culture of curiosity and accountability. So amidst conversations about what kind of cutlery to get, how many pillows did we think we need, we started to talk about evaluation, and we even started to do it. This is Elise. She's one of the co-founders of Pine River Institute, and she is holding a little 2-page questionnaire that I forced all of these poor staff to fill out after our initial training sessions. We didn't have any students, we barely had chairs, but we had data. Because evaluation was on the radar from the very beginning, we were grappling with questions like, how would we know if what we were doing was actually working? How are we going to define our success? So we decided, obviously our substance abuse treatment program, we want to reduce substance use. But we wanted to do more than that. We decided to ground our evaluation outcome in our mission statement: lives, families, and futures. So in addition to looking at reduced substance use, we wanted to look at whether these kids were getting their lives back. Were they engaged in fewer risk behaviors like running away, crises like being hospitalized for suicide attempts? What was their emotional and physical health like? What were the relationships like in their families? Were they getting any better? And most importantly, about their futures. Were they back in school? Were they volunteering, working? How did they rate their own quality of life? Could they even envision a future for themselves? Once we had figured these out, I set to work. I did a survey of the literature, I set up all these questionnaires, I set up these fancy grids with multiple time points for data collection and Excel spreadsheets. I was bracing myself for an onslaught of revolutionary data. It was geekfest galore, and I was filled with great intentions. And then reality hit. The first year of the program, like many startups, was tough. We were running out of resources, there were tons of competing priorities, and we had a small problem. Not very many students. Try collecting data like that. You know, to say that it was tempting to cut the research budget would be an understatement. I can remember Karen calling me one day, and she was really upset because we had to actually draft a plan for closing the institute. We were running out of money, there was no government funding, and we were lying in bed late at night wondering whether or not all this time, all this effort was actually going to amount to anything. But in that moment, the leadership and the board of Pine River made a critical decision. They didn't cut the research budget. And so we continued to measure our impact. The sporadic data collection, it was pretty sad, and I actually had to, we ran a focus group in that first year. I can remember a couple of boxes of pizza in a windowless office in Toronto, and the first families coming in and telling us honestly more about what wasn't working in the program than about what was. It was a rocky start. It was tough stuff to listen to, but we took that feedback and we did things like shift some more attention to the aftercare program, tighten up the therapeutic model. We changed the way we staffed the floor. And that's when we realized the first benefit of measuring our impact. It allowed us to improve our program. By measuring our impact, we were able to build what Pine River is today, and our success today is built on the backs of those really horrible outcome evaluations in the early days. Our program continued to struggle, but we remained committed to doing our outcome evaluation. We started to network. We started to reach out to anybody who knew anything about research, and that involved building a partnership actually with York University and with other programs who were interested in also tracking their outcomes. Measuring our impact early on took a lot of courage, but it forced us to be honest with ourselves and to be honest with the families who trusted us. Even though we didn't have that much data and not very many students, I was determined to produce research reports. This was our first one. It was 2 pages. It had 3 graphs, about 5 lines of text. I actually used the wrong kind of graph for the kind of data I had. But we were trying. We were trying. And, you know, all of that work has been paying off. Our new research director, Laura Mills, has been producing some incredible reports. And it all started from way back in day one when we made a commitment to doing this, and it paid off. In August of 2007, about a month before I actually started graduate studies at York, I got the phone call from Karen that the Ministry of Health had decided to fund us for 23 pilot beds. Turns out the government was actually interested in those tiny little reports and messy graphs that we were producing. About 18 months later, they called us. They wanted to fund us permanently for 29 beds, and other beds around the province would follow. By measuring our impact, we had actually transformed the landscape of services available to kids and families in Canada. Pine River was real, it was sustainable, it was accessible to the kids and families who needed it, and it was creating an impact. We had the data to prove it. By measuring our impact, we had actually managed to improve and continue to improve our program. And we had even transformed the landscape of services available to these kids. But in addition to that, there was one more thing, one more benefit from measuring our impact that we hadn't anticipated. You can remember it was a hot July afternoon, and a minivan pulled up to the front doors of Pine River right there. There was a 15-year-old girl in the back seat. Her mom had managed to get her to the front door. This kid was not getting out of the van. For 40 minutes, different clinicians went out to the van and tried to talk to her. Eventually, I was sent out. I didn't know what to say. I basically sat there and I was like, you know, you have no reason to believe anything I'm going to tell you. And I don't know what you've been through, but I do know that the young people who come to Pine River, generally, they're not very happy. You know, in the fetal position with her hands over her ears, hair in her face, she wasn't talking. And then I told her, you know, as the researcher, I actually follow families that come through this program. And I can tell you it actually works. I mean, it doesn't work for everybody, but it does work for a bunch of them. She lifted her head, tears streaming down her face. She didn't say anything. She unbuckled her seatbelt, stood up, walked through the front doors. Measuring our impact had actually allowed us to create a sense of hope. This is a call to action for governments, for leaders, for day-to-day workers, for all of you, to have the courage to build the capacity to measure the impact that we're making in this world. Outcome evaluation, it's messy, it's mundane, it is definitely not sexy. But when resources are tight, it can even be really hard to justify. We're just trying to keep our heads above water. But it's just as important as that capital R scientific research that we're so familiar with in our universities. Because by measuring impact, we can actually create the momentum for impact. And that kind of change can mean the difference between life and death for a program, for a field, and for a child. Thank you.